Hey everybody, this stream was done when I was getting a lot of my VTuber software up and running, getting a lot of stuff honed in. So if you see anything that looks a little weird or a little bit out of place, just understand that everything's still kind of a work in progress as I get stuff going. It's going to be a little bit scuffed. All right, guys, enjoy.
Got a question for you. Can you trust Steam reviews anymore? Can you trust the Steam AI disclosure?
Is
You'd like to think that you
definitely way
can,
too low.
but today we've got this story. One where two games from, when you follow the whole chain, billion-dollar companies just broke Steam's biggest rules. I mean, one of them should be pretty much one of the biggest rules, review manipulation. And so far, these companies are...
Have you guys seen that, like, review manipulations, like, all over the place? So, like, not only is it just simply, like... Look, all right, the thing with review manipulation is the fact that, like, you're not only going to see, like, bad reviews coming from... Man, it's... All right, I'm, like, all over the place. I'm jumbled. Look, the whole idea with review manipulation is, like, can I trust this review is coming in and it's coming from someone that actually cares about the product? Or am I, like, looking at someone that's, like, generated an AI that's, like, great product. It does the thing that I asked for it to do. Wow, this dress is mighty fine, and you're, like, looking at, like, a suit. Like, shit like that drives me nuts, because you're like, how can I trust that AI hasn't gotten to the point that, like, people are just buying AI reviews? And I guess it's not even just AI reviews, it's, like, normal reviews, too, right? So, like, you're sitting there, you're like, okay, is this pizza restaurant, does it have great garlic knots? Or am I just learning that it has great garlic knots from someone buying, like, an AI review? It's actually insane.
Are getting away with it. And if Valve don't solve this, it will open the floodgates to behavior that, at least in one case with the reviews, would completely ruin trust on the platform. So basically, what if a Steam review was about as trustworthy as an Amazon one? I don't think that's the...
So, okay, so it's really funny because Bellular went into the thing that I just talked about, right, with Amazon, like, being real rough to trust reviews with. And honestly, when it comes down to it, like, we're going to get into this thing called, like, the dead internet theory. So if people don't know what the dead internet theory is, basically the whole concept of it is that the dead internet theory kind of, like, you kind of get to the point where you're like, is this thing real or is this thing just AI, right? Like, am I going on there and am I, like, finding, like, you know, am I, like, dealing with someone real or am I dealing with someone fake, right? The kind of like the thing I just said earlier, so. Okay. That's about it with that
you and I want to use. Also, here's something you'll find interesting that I just found out using Ground News, who are today's sponsor.
I really like Bellular, and I really want to plug his, like, ad stuff, right? Because he's always just been fantastic. But, like, dude, I'm doing a tech stream. It's fine. Like, you'll understand Bellular. Please forgive me one day. Well, fast forward. Ads probably over, like, Ground News.
Description. Alright, I've first got to set the scene before we get to the naughty rule breakers of today. So on Steam, right, usually rule breakers kind of get nuked. I mean, here's an example from February where users flagged a game called Pirate-Fi, and as it turns out, it was just riddled with what they suspected was malware. So that happened 4 days after the game launched.
This just reminded me something, like Pirate-Fi and stuff like that all the time. I'd never had heard of Pirate-Fi, which, like, you know, like the crypto stuff and all that other stuff that kind of, like, leaks into your PC and, you know, installs, like, malware and whatever. But there was something that, there's, like, a game that comes with everyone's Steam that people use to pirate. I don't remember exactly what it's called, but if you search far enough, you can hear people being like, why do I have this game in my collection? Or, like, people, like, leak something on, like, Reddit, and you're like, well, I know this guy pirates because that's what they use to... It's like Asteroid Fight or, like, Star Fight or something like that. I don't remember. It's genuinely really funny how much people leak about themselves.
Launched, Steam killed its store page, then they reviewed everything, and 2 days after that, users who ran the game in their machine got warning emails about potential risk. And this is an example of things going right. You see, Rule 9 of Steam onboarding states that you should not distribute malware. Shocking thing. But here, a clear violation led to a very clear result, as was the case with this other story where an entire publisher's library was pulled because they were essentially churning out endless fake games designed to manipulate Steam's trading card economy. kind of crazy stuff. And
Okay, so this was like the banana thing, right? Do you guys remember the banana thing? So like a little bit ago, there was this thing with like the banana game. I don't know if you guys ever saw the banana game where like you would run and click a thing and then you would grab a banana and then like you would get like this banana that would be like that could be like super secretly rare or whatever, and then you would trade it for real money and then give it to more people. Banana game was like freaking insane, man. People spent so much money and so much time on those bananas because they were treating it like a fake stock market. This is a reminder that if you're buying into stuff like currency and whatever, remember, God, I sound like such a hipster. If you're buying into stuff like currency, then like, you know, it's all just fake. But at the end of the day, like, that's literally what it is. We only think that something's worthwhile because we agree that it's worthwhile.
we've seen instances of individual devs being whacked for trolling, for ban evasion, and if you're an angry dev who decides to tweet a death threat to Gabe Newell, yeah, you will be taken out on Steam. Now, in every example here, it's a very clear pattern, and it's what we would all want. A rule is broken, Valve finds out, they take action, and there you go, everything is good, the platform is healthy. But here's the thing, those examples were mostly smaller teams, mostly indies. This week, though, we've got two listed companies breaking Steam's rules. And this sort of thing has happened before. Remember the whole discussion about the in-game advertisements and how a whole bunch of companies were essentially just kind of flying in under the radar, being unpunished?
So one of the biggest things that they're doing by trying to cut back on in-game advertising is they're trying to get rid of that idea that you can get a free game and the game can be garbage and then they make their money back off ads. So they're trying to stop a market where people download a game because the game looks cool. The game, you open up the game, it bombards you with ads, and then, you know, doesn't matter how much you play into the game because they made their money because they're selling ad space. A lot of people do this a lot of the time where they kind of like trick you into downloading their game. It's like, you know, when you get all those like really fake games, right? Like on the ad store, it's like, you gotta go save the princess. Or you get like these really, really crazy like YouTube ads or like for these like strange mobile games. That's kind of what they're going for. They want you to get in the door because they want you to either download so that you watch an ad, you get free currency, you get through the stuff, and then they offer like a paid solution or whatever. It's like this weird farm that already exists out there. It's so insane.
Well, I actually think today's situation is even worse. First up today, we got Naxxon, and they're no stranger to controversy, like, say, the MapleStory lawsuits, the Dark and Darker lawsuits, but now it's their abuse of Steam reviews. And I think this is one we should be absolutely scathing and clear about because it's goddamn ridiculous. So here's how it went down. Last week, Blue Archive launched in Steam, and if you've got no idea what Blue Archive is, good.
Okay, before we go into anything further, I didn't know this was going to be a Blue Archive video. Nerdy, you're saying, bro, I've downloaded a game from those ads and it has been something totally different and I was pissed. Dude, trust me, this is like... I wish that half the games were as cool, or at least in the same vein as like some of the stuff that they advertised, right? There's nothing wrong with advertising your game and you're like making it look cooler than it actually is, right? Like that's the whole reason we have some of this stuff. Like that's the whole reason that you can like set up like your your man, I'm about to say E3. E3 is not a thing anymore. Your Summer Games trailer, right? Like remember Cyberpunk and like people were like, well, the Cyberpunk trailers don't look better than how the actual gameplay is. And then you were like, yeah, of course, dude. Like all trailers are supposed to make the gameplay look better than what it actually is. And then when they add the gameplay, they're like, look, here's the real gameplay, you know? But I was not expecting to come into here and be Blue Archive pilled on the first day. I'm sorry, guys. Blue Archive fans are just completely different.
Good for you. You're free. But so you're not confused, it's a huge gacha game. It's been going for a few years, I think 4, very popular in mobile, and now it's on PC. And it seems to be doing real well. 91% positive reviews from 8,524 users. Pretty damn good. Now say you're a connoisseur of the whole collectible girls plus concept genre of game. So all the gacha games.
I'm sorry, guys. I am a collectible girl game enjoyer. I am a relentless Zenless Zone Zero enjoyer.
you'd probably think the Blue Archive is just as good as this gacha darling. And take a look at this particular YouTube video. It serves as a good example. The title is I Played Umemasashi Pretty Derby because it had 96% positive reviews. Now, what if you saw a similarly titled video but about Blue Archive saying 91% reviews? You'd probably think it's really good. But here's the thing. While those reviews look similar, you would be wrong to trust them because there's a key difference. Cygames are not breaking Steam's rules, but Nexon is. You see, to celebrate Blue Archive's PC launch, Nexon created celebration events. There's a fan art contest for currency or Steam gift cards, social...
I'm gonna call it right now, before we even get any further into the game, right? Let's call it right now for what it is, How much you want to bet that they are offering you a ton of stuff? God, Blue Archive art is so weird, dude. If you enjoy it, so be it. I'm not gonna hate on you for liking Blue Archive, but man, dude, me and my buddies make fun of people who enjoy Blue Archive a little bit. But like, dude, how much you want to bet before we even go into any of this? It's all going to be about how Blue Archive is going to give you stuff if you leave a review. Right? That's what this stuff normally is. It's like, hey, you go into here, you play the thing, you leave a review, you get some stuff.
Social media raffle for currency, and then there's the big problem. A Steam review event, where basically all users get in-game gifts once Steam hits a target number of reviews.
Yeah, that's so fucked, dude. Like, obviously, if you're a Blue Archive fan, you're gonna leave... Maybe you would not leave a review as is, because like you're already playing it, you're already enjoying it. You don't get organic reviews this way. You get people that just want to like buy their shit. Right? They're like, hey, look, I can't wait until I do this thing. It's the same thing that says, like, hey, you know, you just downloaded this game. You want to rate it on the App Store? Yeah, sure, I'll rate it like a 2.
Negative or positive, doesn't matter. It's just the number of reviews. Now, here's the thing. Steam's rules for user reviews are crystal clear. I will quote them. Don't attempt to abuse or artificially manipulate the review system. Don't solicit reviews in exchange for any games, DLC, money, or other rewards. Absolutely clear cut. Those rules are being broken. And it does kind of make sense why they would try it. I mean, review manipulation is completely commonplace on mobile stores. It's one of the reasons why so many of those games have massively...
It's crazy that I'm hitting this point for point. I mean, it just shows how knowledgeable Bellular's crew is on this type of stuff, that we can talk about things such as like Blue Archive and like, you know, all these mobile games kind of abusing stuff that's going on, and they just don't care. Like, these companies are like, yeah, fuck it, who cares?
The inflated review scores, by the way, they're not actually that good. But of course it's done for a reason. The good reviews look good. They encourage early adoption. They make something spread more.
And the worst part about this too is, before we even get further into the video, is that like the Blue Archive reviews coming out and them doing this on launch is going to be even worse, because it's going to get more people into the gate that shouldn't be into the gate, right? You're not having this organic growth, because it doesn't matter if Steam punishes them later. The fact that they did it within the release window that they came out is like the biggest thing. You're going to get more people in the first week that you drop these reviews. That's the biggest problem here. It's not the fact that you like, it's not the fact that like you're you know, you do it overall and then you get slapped on the wrist and you're like, oof, ouch, I can't believe I did this thing, I broke the rules. It's the fact that the damage has already been done, because so many more people have already gotten into the game, and gacha is such a I don't want to say manipulative, because that's not the correct way. It's just a very much a dangerous game. Like, it's dangerous to get into, because once you start downloading and, you know, playing this type of stuff and doing this type of stuff, you're really going to hurt yourself in the long run if you have compulsion issues, right? If you don't have enough self-control.
But of course, on Steam, unlike the mobile stores, it is explicitly against the rules. Now, Nexon is worth a hell of a lot of money. They're a big company. They're even worth a lot of money to Valve, and that means there's a real simple question here. How much does Valve value their own rules? How much do they value that? Will they make an example out of this game? What will they actually do? Because the rules are being broken. And if a rule is broken and you do nothing, people will question the rule.
This is the biggest thing that you see with stuff on like Twitch and other stuff right now, right? Where you get all these people that are breaking these rules. And like, you know, it could be like your political streamers that are doing something, your hot tub streamers, or if you're like a VTuber and like you're getting banned for showing hip or whatever, like not doing anything, right, and just kind of existing. The biggest thing that happens with when you break these rules and you don't enforce them equally is you get into a position where you just kind of soften the impact of your rules, right? I think Co Carnage had a video out a little bit ago about how a music producer or a rapper or something openly admitted to botting on Twitch. And with botting on Twitch and like him just being like, yeah, I'm gonna do it, everybody does it, and you're just like, all right, dude, chill out a little bit. Like, that's not exactly like, you can't just go out of your way and say that. Don't. I mean, I understand that everybody does it. I understand that people are like super interested in like making themselves look successful, and we can go into that whole entire thing later about how people want to watch successful streamers. But dude, let me tell you something. Like, if they don't enforce these rules, just Valve overall, people are gonna start abusing Valve rules like crazy. It's gonna open the floodgates. Twitch has kind of already done that. That's why you got stuff escalating to the point in which it is. But I mean, that's just me. You know, says the guy that's not currently on Twitch, bailed from real life streaming to become a VTuber on, you know, YouTube and in Twitter.
And this brings me to today's second defendant. The Alters is the new game from 11-bit. You probably know 11-bit from Frostpunk. And the good news is, it's a great game. It's 86% on OpenCritic, 88% in Steam, and that's all from real, non-Blue Archive reviews.
I'm going to pause it right here. If you do this thing where you fake reviews, even if your game is excellent, like, I'm not a huge Blue Archive fan. I'm not the demographic for it. It is not for me. But if Blue Archive was an awesome game, and I found out that people were like sitting there and just forging reviews, I wouldn't want to try the game. I'd be like, okay, this is kind of garbage. Your game is obviously so bad that you need to have people sign up for reviews. And it ends up hurting people more. But again, like I said, you do it early, abuse often, right? People say that about World of Warcraft. I mean, let's hope that Valve really puts a slap on the wrist on these folks.
Which is nice. The problem is 11-bit's mistake with false representation of generative AI. So here's essentially what happened, right? A user noticed that background art contained an AI prompt. It was a bunch of code, but one of the lines was basically the prompt. Now, this was a small asset. It was the kind of thing that basically would normally be covered by lorem ipsum text. So basically, some AI-generated placeholder stuff, and in this case, they basically used AI to generate some technobabble stuff, but then they left it in. And look, if they didn't notice that, and that was the reason why they didn't use the disclosure on Steam, I suppose that would have been kind of understandable.
Okay, I'm gonna be real honest. This sounds like something where someone tried to get through and try to like really take advantage of the fact that they could easily make something out of AI instead of just making it normally. I think that this is a little bit less egregious, but this is definitely like an ethics thing, right? When you come into it, you're like, okay, I'm using generative AI. I'm gonna be real honest. I hire artists for a bunch of stuff. I have a bunch of art in the can, but I don't have stuff right now to make my stuff good. So I'm like waiting for people to finish. So until I can get that real art in my hand, yeah, I'll use AI, and yeah, it'll look like crap. But let me tell you guys, once I get my actual art coming through, you guys are going to be so happy at how stuff looks.
But it actually turns out it's not just that, because something else happened. Non-English users noticed something altogether different. Those same prompts appeared in subtitles on some of the in-game movies. Now, when called out for this issue, 11-bit did confirm that both things were true, that the art was indeed placeholder text that wasn't removed, but that the subtitles was actually deliberate. And here's how they explain it. It's late in development for their game, and the team decides to implement these movies. But they have a problem, and that problem is localization. Their localization partner would not be able to get that stuff done in time. And that essentially meant that with the time they had, 11-bit could either ship no subtitles for them, or they could translate them in-house with the resources that they had.
So it's like, how do you ethically use AI here, right? Because like the question is like with how AI goes through, right? You get to the situation of like, where's the line with using AI, right? Do you want someone that can afford to use AI to do AI, or do you want to use AI to put in a feature that you normally wouldn't be able to do? I mean, maybe, right? Like, I don't think I'm gonna... All right. I don't think I really have that strong of an opinion on this. I think it's bad that they didn't disclose it, and I think that AI itself is like this big problem that needs to be disclosed. But at the same time, I don't fault them for using it, but it's kind of weird.
Where clearly, of course, they just went to using chatbots for that, which is kind of understandable. A language model is pretty good at translating language. Obviously not as good as a proper creative localization job, but you get the point. They went to that technology.
We're also going to have an issue with LLMs, right? So the way that learning language models, or LLMs, AI, chatbots, all this other stuff, whatever you want to call it, from what I understand, you're not going to get a very good translation like localization can for a little while. At least I haven't seen it. A lot of the stuff is like rigid and like doesn't really do not dialect, but like phrasing properly. At least that's what I understand. If I have anybody that knows AI better, feel free to correct me, but like you're going to get this rigid, almost feeling like like uncreative type stuff with it. I don't know, man. It's a lot of stuff. I'll continue watching the video.
Now, they say that this was only 0.3% of the overall text in the game, and so they decided to just make that call, to use the chatbots so that they could have the subtitles. Now, in their statement, they acknowledge that the wrong call was made, and they say that they should have simply let you know. Yeah, duh, they should have. But not just because it's the right thing to do. Actually, they should have because they need to. You see, Steam has got generative AI disclosure rules, and the rule states, pre-generated any kind of content created with the help of AI tools during development. So clearly, 11-bit also broke Steam's rules.
Real talk, when it comes down to this type of stuff, I'm like very, very positive about telling people when you're using AI, right? I think AI is going to be there that's going to help people, and I think there will be an ethical pipeline to doing it. But not disclosing anything about it is probably one of the worst things you can do, because if you don't disclose anything about, like, you know, your AI, you're going to get into this part where you're going to like try a game, maybe someone draws some fantastic art for it, and then it just ends up being slop. Or you get into this other case where I believe there was like a PvP MMO that came out, not MMO, but a PvP like gacha game that came out. Braxophone has a video on it where he did a review, and a lot of people didn't like it, or a lot of people didn't like Brax's review, even though like Brax did a really good job talking about it. And they came under fire because they were using AI artists when they threw so much money into it, and the company was known for having a ton of money overall.
And to be clear, Steam's definition as it stands is pretty damn broad. So if your game is using AI services during development, that's something you've got to disclose, seemingly, you know, whether it makes it to the final product or not. It's broad as hell, but that's the wording of the rule. So 11-bit may have intended to do this and then replace the content, but they launched without the disclosure that they needed. And as of the time of writing, there is still no disclosure. Now sure, if they put that disclosure there, maybe they would have lost a few sales on the launch of the game, or something like that. But I've got to imagine that audience trust and not breaking Steam's rules, those things should almost certainly be higher. So
this is really weird, right? The fact that they put out a statement that they used AI assisted stuff, but they haven't tagged their video yet. That's actually huge, and it kind of like shows that, like, I want them to be successful, and I want people to be successful, and I want people to get their bag and whatnot. But like, if you're not gonna go out of your way to at least tag something and be like, hey, look, you know, we used AI here and we got caught and all this other stuff. Yeah, it's an optics L, but it's definitely needed.
Or two naughty games companies. Now, in a way, this could all just seem like tattling to the teacher, you know? Gabe, these developers are doing a terrible thing in your platform, yeah. No, it's not that. There's a reason why I bring all of this up. You see, in both cases, there have been no consequences. Nexon has not retracted their overt review manipulation campaign. 11-bit have not updated their store page. How little effort would it take to update the store page? I mean, come on. Now, sure, there's bad PR in both cases, but there's little material consequence coming from Valve, and unfortunately for Valve, a pattern is beginning to form. 11-bit and Nexon broke the rules, as did the smaller games that I opened up today's video with. Now, those small games, like with malware and other things, were very easy to punish, but a well-liked, well-selling game from a real big company that's worth a lot of money, that's, in a way, harder to punish for Valve.
I'm gonna be real honest. there's definitely a way in between, but if you really want to set, if Valve really wants to stand on their principles, and they normally do, you just pull them off. It sucks, but you have to pull them off Steam, or you have to like, you know, you have to put something somewhere and make them relist, or maybe there's a fine behind the scenes that we don't know about. Who knows?
It certainly seems so anyway. I mean, in one way, it's actually just as easy. The rules are the rules. Just apply them, forehead. But that's not really how reality ends up working. What Valve has got to do is manage their relationships with each company. And here it would appear that the value of the relationship and the associated revenue with that is worth more to Valve than their own rules.
You ever hear about the phrase office politics, when people are like, well, I just have to deal with office politics, or it's just business, or business politics, or all this other stuff? This is a key example of like office politics or business politics or things of the sort, when you can't just simply use your rules as it stands, because you're going to cut out so many things. And I guess if we're talking about how I brought up Twitch before, this kind of makes you reflect a little bit and go, well, yeah, maybe it's a little bit more of a nuanced discussion, but at the same time, if you have these rules, you got to enforce them.
But I think they should be worried about that, because I think we both know what this really would do. It would set a precedent. The point can be made with a very simple hypothetical. What happens when another developer manipulates reviews with exactly the same tactics as Blue Archive did, and then they get punished by Valve, but they just say, but what the hell? You let Blue Archive happen. You never issued a statement and you never punished Nexon. Why are you being unfair to me? And yeah, Valve could say, well, look at the rules, you broke them. To which the company could rightly say, well, clearly, Valve, it's not a rule because those people, Blue Archive, also broke it and you didn't do anything about it. Now, look, what I'm about to say is not really apples to apples, but there's a reason why, right? In the legal system, you have the law as it is written, but then you've also got case law. The idea being that case law guides a judge on how to interpret the word of the law and actually apply it in, a real material scenario.
So there's this idea, I thought Bellular was going to talk more about like letter of the law versus spirit of the law, but I'm very interested to see how he talks about applying case law versus like the actual law.
So here, think of Valve kinda like the judge. I mean, they're also legislative, but you get my point, right? What Valve have got to do is act, and they need to act because they need to set a precedent of how their rules are followed. And that's the problem with Valve's kind of fluffily worded rules. Even take the generative AI one. Technically, you could argue that almost any game would fall under that if their business operations are running on an email platform that perhaps AI auto-labels their emails, because that would be contributing to how the game is actually made. So from that,
there's a huge correlation to this. I don't know if folks are huge like Final Fantasy 14 players, but like they say stuff like no add-ons, right? And like Xenosis Vex talks about this all the time, right? Like talking about when you're as vague as this is, you talk about like, okay, is your Discord is technically an add-on, right? All this other stuff is technically an add-on. And yeah, it sounds dumb, but you're not wrong, right? It's not dumb because the fact that you need clarification, right? If you don't clarify what you mean and what the intent is, and you don't spell it out, you get these weird situations where you're going to get rules that like just aren't followed. And I know that sounds crazy to say, but
that perspective, not only have Valve got a very poorly worded AI disclosure policy thing, as for their actual rules, like the ones that Nexon are maliciously exploiting, well, if Valve have the rules and they don't enforce them, then that would essentially be seen as, oh, well, in that case, you set the precedent that doing this at the level of Blue Archive does not get you slammed, doesn't get you banned or actioned against. And that's what could lead other developers and publishers to try the same thing. And if Valve was to punish them, they could probably even make a legal case of Valve incorrectly applying their rules, as is understood through Valve, basically not giving a shit about their rules earlier. And I suppose if you're a Nexon stan, you could kind of say, well, hey, they don't specify that the review needs to be positive. It's not asking for that, therefore it should be fine.
That's really dangerous though, right? Because like you infer that like, hey, look, if we reach X, like it's so shady and scummy and shitty because like, they're like, hey, look, if we reach these types of reviews or this amount of reviews, like You know, we'll give stuff out to people. And like also at the same time you're like, well, if we reach this type of review score or people spend this amount of money in the game, right? Like you could easily say, well, it doesn't have to happen, you know? And that's such a shitty type of argument to go through.
Well, no, it still is manipulation. It's similar to, like, preaching to your own choir. The people targeted by this are Blue Archive players, people who would want the game to succeed and who will get rewards for the review milestones. So of course those will skew positive. Of course it is manipulation, and that erodes the value of and the trust in Steam reviews. And that is something that cannot become normal. As for 11-bit, well, they broke the rule. There should be a slap. But ultimately, I do think it was a misjudgment impacting a very small part of the game. Certainly, insofar as like AI disclosure related things would go, there is far more malicious stuff that could be going on. But that doesn't mean Valve shouldn't do anything, because if Valve does nothing here, they would just give the impression that this sort of thing is okay, and that they don't take their own rules seriously. And of course, you just know that if that happens, the grifter types would take any wiggle room that they could get and absolutely use it as a justification to just go hog wild.
Yeah, this is going to cause a precedent if they don't at least come out and say something, or they don't get punished in any way whatsoever, or they don't get told to stop it, right? Like, maybe you don't have to punish them at all, but you have to tell them that this isn't okay. Please don't do this.
Something needs to be done, but it's still not as blatant a violation of the wording and the spirit of the rule as in the Nexon situation. So, Valve, give them a slap, project to the rest of the industry that you're not asleep at the goddamn wheel, because if you are asleep at the wheel, the norms on your platform will change. One where we as customers cannot trust reviews, as an example. And guess what? If it's bad for us, if we can't trust reviews, if we can't trust the disclosures are actually authentic, we will feel less confidence. We'll be less likely to buy on Steam, or at the very least, we'll think twice. And as anyone who understands sales knows, the second someone is starting to think twice, your conversion rate just absolutely falls to shit. So to Valve, I have a very simple message. Would you trust someone who doesn't enforce their own rules?
Okay, so obviously, right, like, Bellular did a really good video here. If you don't know BellularNews' stuff, go out of your way to try to watch Bellular stuff, right? BellularNews right here. I don't know if my screen's picking it up. Let's see if my screen picks it up. Yeah, BellularNews right here. Go check out Bellular. Go try and maybe support his sponsor too. Like, you know, like he does a lot of good work.